room where men were sitting on prayer mats, sharing a lesson from the Quran. Mamdani then slipped off his shoes and he joined the men as they knelt to pray.
غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
And these men, Michelle, many awaiting trial, and also Muslim men who are corrections officers, they all gathered around, the mayor of the country's biggest city, and they shared fellowship.
Tell us more about what brought you there and why this moment matters.
I've spent the last week following Mamdani as he celebrated Ramadan and these iftar dinners ending the daily fast in a really public way. He's been using the influence of his office in the city to really reframe Muslim life, pulling it into the center of the city's culture in a way that a lot of people, especially Muslims, tell me feels really new. Mamdani told me last night this celebration, breaking the fast with these men behind bars, felt especially powerful.
This is one of the most meaningful evenings that I've had as the mayor of New York City.
Does it send any kind of message, or is it strictly a moment of worship and community?
This is me just being a Muslim New Yorker. And I think there are some for whom that is a political act. And there are a million or so of us here in the city for whom it is simply a day-to-day existence.
And really, this is happening at a time, Michelle, when Mamdani and many Muslim Americans face growing hostility, especially from politicians on the far right. Just last week, a Republican senator from Alabama, Tommy Tuberville, reposted a photo of Mamdani celebrating Ramadan next to an image of the 9/11 terror attacks. Mamdani's pushed back, calling those attacks bigoted and racist, but he's also just continued holding these Ramadan celebrations night after night.
Now, Brian, you mentioned that corrections officers also shared fellowship with Mamdani and
That's
prayer,
right.
but you spoke to some of the men who were being held at Rikers. What did they say about Mamdani's visit?
Yeah, jail officials allowed me to speak freely with some of these men who prayed and ate with Mamdani on the condition that NPR not use their names. These guys ranged in age from their 20s to their 50s. And here's what they told me about sharing this holiday with Mamdani, who they called their Muslim brother.
I'm ecstatic. He cares about us, even though we're going through a rough time.
It's a proud thing to not be looked down upon, especially we have someone as powerful as the mayor here. That's a blessing.
And Mamdani spends an hour with these men. That's a long time for a politician, talking and shaking hands.
Brian, before we let you go, do we have any sense yet for how or if Mamdani's faith is shaping his policies and the way he's leading the city?
He's emerged really quickly on the national scene as probably the most influential Muslim public official in the country. He's used that position to advocate for Palestinian rights. He's opposed the new war in Iran. That's made him, as we mentioned, a big target for political attacks. But Mamdani's also keeping his focus on affordability, and he's also been careful to show, Michelle, that he's not just the mayor of the Muslim community. Last night he celebrated Ramadan. Today it's St. Patrick's Day. He's joining the big parade and attending a Catholic mass.
That is NPR's Brian Mann. Brian, thanks.
Thank you.
And you will hear more from him later today about Mayor Mamdani on All Things Considered. It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Michelle Martin.
WNYC receives support from Shepherd, a global law firm with over 1,200 lawyers advising on business disputes, transactions, financings, and regulatory issues while building relationships based on trust and collaboration. Online at shepherd.com.
On the next Brian Lehrer Show, the Democrats' affordability agenda runs into the party's climate goals. Governor Kathy Hochul wants to delay New York's carbon reduction timetable, saying it will cost New Yorkers too much too soon as it stands. We'll debate and discuss. Also, the state of the Irish language on St. Patrick's Day 2026. The Brian Lehrer Show, weekdays at 10 a.m. on WNYC.
It's 6:51. Marketplace Morning Report is next. And then later on Morning Edition, a federal judge has issued a preliminary ruling that puts a hold on the Trump administration's overhaul of vaccine policies, including cuts to the number of recommended vaccines for children. We'll get the latest on this next hour on Morning Edition. 36 with clear skies. Wind advisory till 8 o'clock this morning. A chance of late afternoon flurries. Mostly sunny on this Tuesday. Low 40s. Winds gusting to nearly 30 miles an hour. Alternate side parking in effect, and so are the meters. This is WNYC.
Which way to steer this economy is being decided now.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Barron's Investor Circle, offering stock picks, market insights, and access to the Barron's editors behind a century of reporting at barrons.com/investor circle. And by Mercury, a banking platform that now provides access to personal accounts with high-yield savings and more. Learn more at mercury.com/personal.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore in for David Brancaccio. The Federal Reserve starts a 2-day meeting on interest rates today. It can cut them to help the labor market, can raise them to fight inflation, or just keep them where they are and wait and see. The war in the Middle East is making that decision a whole lot more complicated. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer reports.
The Federal Reserve has two jobs: keep inflation in check and get as many people working as possible. It's been tough to balance this dual mandate because even before the war, inflation was stuck above the Fed's 2% target, while hiring is weak, with the economy losing 92,000 jobs in February. The Fed is swimming in a cross-current. If it cuts interest rates to support the labor market, it risks nudging inflation even higher. And if the war drags on, rising energy prices will ripple through the economy. So Fed officials are expected to leave interest rates unchanged at this meeting because of the uncertainty of war. In a research note, EY chief economist Gregory Dacko says, quote, "It is entirely plausible that the Fed won't deliver any rate cuts this year." I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
Dollar Tree discount stores reported earnings yesterday, and they included a recap of 2025. They did pretty well. Sales rose 5.3% over the year. 2026, though, is not looking as good. The company predicted sales growth would slow down to just 3 or 4%. Similar story for Ross Stores, which reported earlier this month. Strong 2025, looking weaker in 2026. Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes looks at what's working in favor of discounters right now and what is not.
On one busy block in East Baltimore, there's pretty much every kind of discount store imaginable. A bunch of pawn shops, a store advertising cut-rate liquor, and a Dollar Tree where Damian Edmonds popped in to get a bottle of juice.
You go to a regular market, you're going to spend $3, $4, and here you're only paying $1.25.
Edmonds is retired and on a fixed income. He also likes nice shoes, and he'd rather put his money towards Jordans than juice. So he takes the bus to the dollar store to get deals.
Let me get out, get some of this fresh air, stretch my legs. It's the way to do it. You got to learn how to save and work the city accordingly.
In the last couple years, shopping at dollar stores has become cool for people of all income levels. Katie Thomas studies consumer behavior at the consulting firm Kearney.
There was a removal of stigma, frankly, that went away as inflation really peaked coming out of COVID.
But Thomas says low-income consumers remain the core customers for dollar stores. And when an essential item like gas goes up in price, they have less to spend on everything else. In the past, they might have substituted in a cheaper version of something they need.
Now we're seeing people just decide if they really need the thing at all.
So prioritizing essentials, but maybe skipping a treat, even if it only costs $1. In Baltimore, I'm Stephanie Hughes for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all down in the 2 to 0.3% range, with Dow futures down 94 points. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.23%. The price of a barrel of Brent crude is $103 a barrel, up 3%. The average price of a gallon of gasoline is $3.79, $5.50 if you're in California. The national average is up 40% from a month ago.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, committed to business buying solutions to empower leaders to streamline and focus on growth. Learn more about smart business buying at amazonbusiness.com. And by Odoo.com, providing business management software with integrated programs for accounting, manufacturing, and operations. Odoo, all your business on one platform.
If you are one of the millions of people who have not yet done your taxes, you have got 1 month and 1 day left to file. Believe me, I know all about procrastination, but there may be something to look forward to. A lot of people who've already filed have gotten bigger refunds this year, especially middle or upper middle income people. Marketplace's Samantha Fields has more.
About 2/3 of people get a refund when they file their taxes, and so far this year, It's been a really good season, really good for taxpayers. On average, if you look at the IRS data, refunds are up over 10%.
Mark Stieber at Jackson Hewitt Tax Services says for lots of people, refunds are up much more than that because of changes Congress made to tax law when it passed that big budget bill last summer. Many people who earn overtime will no longer have to pay taxes on all of it. Same with tips.
If you earn tips as part of your income, think that barista when you're buying your coffee, hospitality worker that you put a couple dollars in the bed when you're staying overnight in a hotel, bartender, for example, you now get a deduction up to $25,000. And that's a pretty big deduction that Tier 4 did not exist.
And the bigger the deduction, the bigger the refund. This year, the standard deduction is higher for everyone, and there's a new bonus deduction for many seniors over 65. People who took out a loan to buy a car can also now deduct the interest, as long as that car was assembled in the U.S. And most parents will get an extra $200 per kid from the child tax credit.
So just like we would expect when there's a very large tax cut, we are seeing, on average, people are receiving higher refunds, and they're more likely to receive a refund.
Elaine Mogg at the Urban Brookings Tax Policy Center says when people get a refund, they often spend it, especially if they're low or middle income.
We see people sometimes wait for big expenses to come until tax time. So more children will go to the doctor right after receiving a tax refund. We see purchases in places like grocery stores increase.
It's also common for people to put their refund towards something bigger, she says, like a new fridge or a car.
And I think we'll just see a little bit more of that this year, mostly because people are feeling pressed with the higher prices they're seeing.
All of those purchases add up, says Stieber at Jackson Hewitt.
Each year, 100 million Americans get $300 billion with a B in tax refunds. Some of the early estimates say that's going to go up $100 billion.
And if consumers turn around, as they often do, and go spend a big chunk of that this spring, he says that'll be a good thing for the economy. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
And in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.